Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. In the numismatic world, every coin has a story. Some are tales of everyday commerce, others whisper secrets of rare anomalies, historical events, and minting mishaps. But then there are coins like the 1971 USA quarter dollar with the Denver Mint mark, the humble yet surprisingly collectible piece that many overlook, only to later discover its worth. Now, imagine yourself back in 1971. The United States was experiencing a wave of change. Richard Nixon was president, the Vietnam War was still raging, and the country was grappling with economic challenges and social shifts. In this complex time, the U.S. Mint continued its steady job of producing the coins that moved the economy forward. Day in and day out, millions of quarters were struck and sent into circulation, most of which disappeared into pockets, purses, and cash registers, barely a second thought given. Yet, not all quarters are created equal. The quarter in question here bears the date 1971 and the tiny, often overlooked D mint mark, placed just beside the bust of George Washington on the obverse, the front side of the coin. This D denotes that it was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the key production facilities of U.S. currency. At first glance, it's just another quarter. To the average eye, it's worth 25 cents, maybe something to toss in a parking meter or soda machine. But dig deeper, and you begin to unravel a coin rich in historical and collector value. The design is classic. It's iconic. And it lasted largely unchanged until 1999, when the state quarters program gave each state its own commemorative design. But before that change, before the new millennium, quarters like the one minted in 1971 quietly lived their lives through daily transactions, unnoticed by most. So what makes this particular coin, the 1971 D quarter, so special? The answer lies in a combination of historical context, mintage numbers, condition rarity, and collector demand. First, consider the mintage. The Denver Mint struck over 258 million of these quarters in 1971. That sounds like a lot, and it is, but quantity doesn't always guarantee longevity, especially in good condition. These coins were meant for circulation, not preservation. They were handled roughly, passed around, scratched, worn down, and rarely saved in pristine state. And that's where the first crack of opportunity emerges for collectors. Now, let's introduce another layer to this story: the evolution of coin composition. Since 1965, quarters were no longer struck in 90% silver. The rising cost of silver had made coin production too expensive, so the U.S. Mint transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition. The core was copper, with outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This shift was not just economical, it also changed the coin's color, weight, and sound. If you've ever dropped an older silver coin next to a clad one, the tonal difference is immediately noticeable. By 1971, the clad quarter was fully established, and all quarters from that year, including our 1971 D, were produced with this copper-nickel composition. That might seem like it would devalue the coin, but actually, the opposite is sometimes true. With no silver content, the coin's value rests purely in its condition, scarcity, and collector appeal, making pristine examples even more coveted. Let's talk about those exceptional finds, rare coins with errors or unusual traits. There have been reported cases of 1971 D quarters with striking errors, such as off-center strikes, double dies, and planchet flaws. These errors occur during the minting process, and while rare, they are goldmines for collectors. If such an error exists on a 1971 D quarter, and it has, its value can increase dramatically, sometimes into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on severity and condition. Coin roll hunters and metal detector enthusiasts sometimes come across these gems by sheer luck. Their stories add to the lore and allure of coins like the 1971 D quarter. A seemingly ordinary coin becomes the centerpiece of an exciting discovery, and speaking of discoveries, there's one more element that really puts this coin into the spotlight: its current market value. While a circulated 1971 D quarter is still worth just face value, 25 cents, unless it has a notable error, the real treasure lies in uncirculated or mint state examples. A 1971 D quarter graded MS-65 can command significantly more. In fact, recent auctions have shown prices climbing higher than casual collectors might expect. One such coin, graded and certified, sold for a surprising $114. That's right, $114 for a coin most people wouldn't look twice at. That's 456 times its face value. Why? Because of its pristine condition, historical context, and collector demand. For the average person, the takeaway is simple: don't overlook the coins in your change jar. That dusty container on your dresser might hold a miniature fortune. For coin enthusiasts, the 1971 D is a reminder that even modern coins can have substantial value, especially when they're preserved with care or carry a unique error. So the next time you come across a quarter, flip it over. Check the date. Look closely at the mint mark. Inspect the surfaces. Is it worn and scratched? Or does it still gleam under the light, edges sharp, details crisp? Because you just might be holding a piece of history, one that's no longer worth just 25 cents, but $114, and a fascinating story to go with it. Have you ever walked by a coin, a simple quarter lying on the sidewalk, and thought, it's just 25 cents? Most of us have. A quarter is something we toss into vending machines, laundry machines, or forget about in the cup holder of our cars. But what if I told you that one very specific quarter, minted in 1980, with a tiny little D mark under its eagle, could be worth up to $120 today? That's right. A single quarter. The kind you might have in a drawer somewhere, jingling around with other loose change, might actually be hiding a little secret. And that secret lies in its date, its mint mark, and what makes that coin so special. But before we get to the juicy part, before we talk about why someone might pay $120 for it, we need to go back. Back to 1980. A time of big hair, disco still echoing in the streets, and Ronald Reagan preparing to take the presidency. America was in transition. Economically, politically, and even in how we looked at the small things. Like coins, that D stands for Denver, one of the primary mints of the U.S. mint system. The Denver Mint has been pumping out coins for well over a century, and in 1980, it struck millions of quarters. That's right, millions. Collectors use a grading scale called the Sheldon scale, which runs from 1 to 70. A coin graded MS-60 might be uncirculated but have noticeable marks or dull luster. A coin graded MS-67, however, is a true gem, flawless to the naked eye, with brilliant luster and nearly perfect surfaces. So imagine finding a 1980 D quarter in your pocket change that looks as though it just left the mint. Perfect shine, no scratches, full details, an MS-67 or higher. That's where the magic happens. Because collectors are always searching for the best preserved examples of every coin, and when it comes to the 1980 D quarter, those high-grade examples are exceedingly rare. And then there's the story. Every coin tells one. The 1980 D quarter came out in a pivotal time in U.S. history. Inflation was soaring. The Hunt brothers were trying to corner the silver market. The U.S. Mint had already moved away from silver in coinage, and quarters by this time were made of a copper-nickel-clad composition, still shiny, but nowhere near as heavy or valuable as their 90% silver ancestors. Yet despite that, these quarters had, and still have, character. And nostalgia. Think about it, coins from 1980 are now over 40 years old. For many collectors, they bring back memories. Maybe of a first job. A candy store. An arcade game that only needed one coin to play. So when someone spots a perfectly preserved 1980 D quarter, something stirs. It's not just about the metal. It's about the moment. It's about holding a piece of the past in your hand, and knowing that not many others like it still exist. Coin collecting, at its heart, is a mix of history, treasure hunting, and passion. You never know where the next discovery will come from. A coin that's been sitting quietly in a jar for years could suddenly be worth far more than its face value. That's the thrill. Now, let's say you have a 1980 D quarter. How do you know if it's valuable? Start by looking at its condition. Is the detail crisp? Can you see the lines in Washington's hair? Are the edges sharp? Does the eagle on the reverse look fully struck, with no flat spots or wear? If so, you might have something special, and that brings us to today. In recent auctions, 1980 D quarters in top condition have fetched impressive prices. One such coin sold for $120, yes, a regular, copper-nickel quarter, not made of silver or gold, not an error, just a nearly flawless example of a common coin that survived time better than the rest. Imagine that. 1 quarter. 25 cents turning into $120. Now, will every 1980 D quarter bring in that kind of money? Of course not. The vast majority are worth exactly what they say, 25 cents. But that's the fun of it. That's the magic. It's like searching for buried treasure in plain sight. Every coin has potential. Every pocketful of change could hold a surprise. So the next time you're about to spend that quarter without a second thought, take a moment. Check the date. Look at the mint mark. Pay attention to the details. You might just be holding a tiny piece of American history, and possibly, a hidden gem worth much more than you think. The 1980 D quarter is a reminder that sometimes, the ordinary can be extraordinary. That even the smallest, most overlooked things in life can carry a story, a legacy, and even a little bit of treasure. So go ahead, check your change. Explore your drawers. Look in those old piggy banks. Who knows? That shiny 1980 D quarter in your hand might just be your first step into a world of collecting, history, and maybe even a little profit. And now, as promised, the big reveal. The current top market value for a pristine, high-grade 1980 D Washington quarter? $120. That's right, $120 for a 25-cent coin. A reminder that hidden treasures are all around us. Sometimes, they're just waiting for someone to notice. Thanks for watching, and good luck treasure hunting. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you found this fascinating. You never know who else might be sitting on a fortune in spare change.